A punk rock queen with platinum blonde hair and red lipstick sitting across from a country boy in cowboy boots and a plaid shirt. Two people from completely different worlds, living completely different lives, going through the exact same heartbreak at the exact same time. Nobody could have predicted what would happen next. But Gwen Stefani has finally broken her silence, and what she's revealing about Blake Shelton is something that nobody, absolutely nobody, saw coming. This isn't just another celebrity love story. This is about the man behind the music, the side of Blake that the cameras never captured, and the moment that changed everything between them forever. You see, when Gwen walked onto the set of The Voice in 2014, she had no idea who Blake Shelton was. Can you believe that? Here's this massively successful country music star, already a household name across America, and Gwen Stefani, the lead singer of No Doubt, the woman who defined an entire generation with songs like Don't Speak and Just a Girl, had never even heard his name. She came from the punk rock scene in California, a world of rebellion and alternative music, where country music simply didn't exist on the radar. Blake came from Ada, Oklahoma, a small town where Friday nights meant football games and Sunday mornings meant church. Their lives had never intersected, not even once, until that fateful day when they both sat in those big red chairs as coaches on one of the biggest talent shows in America. But here's where the story gets interesting. When they first met, both of them were wearing masks. Not literal masks, but emotional ones. They were both going through divorces that were splashed across every tabloid and entertainment website in the world. Gwen was ending her 13-year marriage to Gavin Rossdale, the frontman of the rock band Bush, and the reason for that split was devastating. She had discovered infidelity that shook her to her core, a betrayal that involved their nanny, someone who was in their home, around their 3 young sons. The pain was unimaginable. Meanwhile, Blake was going through his own public heartbreak, separating from Miranda Lambert after 4 years of marriage. These weren't just divorces. These were the kind of endings that make you question everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and the person sleeping next to you. So there they were, 2 broken people trying to hold it together in front of millions of viewers, trying to be entertaining and enthusiastic while their personal lives were crumbling behind the scenes. And something happened, something that neither of them expected. They started talking, really talking. Not the surface-level celebrity small talk, not the rehearsed conversations for the cameras, but real, raw, honest conversations about what they were going through. Blake later said that he would look over at Gwen during breaks and see the same pain in her eyes that he was feeling. They didn't have to explain it to each other. They just knew. They were living parallel destructions, as Gwen would later describe it, going through the exact same nightmare at the exact same time. But Gwen has now revealed something about those early days that nobody knew. Something about Blake that changed her entire perception of who he was as a man. You see, everyone saw Blake as this fun-loving, beer-drinking, joke-cracking country boy. He was the guy who made everyone laugh, the one who never took anything too seriously, the court jester of The Voice who would tease Adam Levine and make sarcastic comments that had everyone in stitches. That's the Blake Shelton the world knew. But Gwen discovered a completely different person when the cameras stopped rolling. She talks about this moment, this specific moment that she says changed everything. They were sitting together during a particularly difficult week for her, when the news about her divorce was everywhere, when her heart was shattered into a million pieces, and she was trying to figure out how she was going to explain all of this to her 3 young boys. Blake didn't try to make her laugh. He didn't crack a joke or try to lighten the mood. Instead, he did something that Gwen says she will never forget for as long as she lives. He listened. Not just heard her, but truly listened. He sat there with her, this man she barely knew, and he let her pour out her heart without judgment, without trying to fix anything, without making it about him. He just held space for her pain. Gwen reveals that in that moment, she saw something in Blake that nobody else saw. She saw his depth. She saw his capacity for empathy and kindness that went far beyond anything she had ever imagined. This wasn't the Blake Shelton from the tabloids or the television screen. This was a man who understood suffering, who knew what it felt like to have your life turned upside down, and who had enough emotional intelligence to know that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is simply be present with them in their darkness. But that wasn't all. Gwen goes on to share something even more profound about Blake's character. Something that has defined their entire relationship, and something that she says makes her fall in love with him over and over again every single day. It's his patience. Now, you might be thinking, patience? That's it? That's the big secret? But hear me out, because what Gwen is describing is not just ordinary patience. She's talking about the kind of patience that comes from a deeply rooted sense of kindness and understanding. You have to understand something about Gwen's life when she met Blake. She was a single mother to 3 boys, Kingston, Zuma, and Apollo. Her entire world revolved around them. She was trying to navigate her career, her divorce, her own healing, and being the best mother she could possibly be to these 3 young children who were also trying to process their parents' separation. It was overwhelming. It was exhausting. It was the kind of situation that would send most men running in the opposite direction. Who wants to jump into a relationship with someone who has 3 kids, who's going through a messy divorce, who's in the public eye, and who comes with more baggage than a cargo plane? But Blake Shelton stepped into that chaos with open arms. Gwen reveals that from the very beginning, Blake never made her feel like her children were a burden or an inconvenience. He never made her feel like she had to choose between being a mother and being in a relationship with him. Instead, he embraced all of it. He embraced her boys, her chaos, her complicated life, with a level of patience and grace that she had never experienced before. She talks about how Blake would spend hours playing with her sons, how he would teach them about ranch life and animals and all the things he loved, how he would make them laugh with his goofy sense of humor, and how he never once complained about the fact that their lives were anything but simple. Gwen says that Blake's patience extends to every aspect of their relationship. She talks about how he has an unlimited capacity to listen to her, to support her creative process, to encourage her dreams, and to never make her feel rushed or pressured into being anything other than exactly who she is. In a world where everyone is in a hurry, where people want instant results and immediate gratification, Blake Shelton taught Gwen what it means to slow down and appreciate the journey. He taught her that real love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about showing up every single day with kindness, with understanding, and with a willingness to weather any storm together. And speaking of showing up, let's talk about one of the most romantic things Blake Shelton has ever done for Gwen, something that perfectly encapsulates who he is as a man and as a partner. Before they got married in July 2021, Blake built a chapel. Yes, you read that right. He built an actual chapel on his property in Oklahoma specifically so he could marry Gwen there. He didn't hire a team of contractors to do it for him. He got his hands dirty. He was out there with the tools, with the wood, physically building this structure with his own 2 hands because he wanted their wedding to be in a place that he had created with love. Can you imagine that? This multimillionaire country music superstar, who could have easily paid someone to build the most elaborate wedding venue imaginable, chose instead to build it himself because he wanted it to mean something. He wanted Gwen to walk down an aisle in a place that represented their love, their commitment, and the work that goes into building a life together. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about creating something real and lasting with his own hands. Gwen says that when she saw what Blake had done, when she realized the amount of thought and effort and love that had gone into building that chapel, she was moved to tears. It was a gesture that spoke louder than any words ever could. Their wedding day was intimate and beautiful, with only about 40 guests in attendance. They didn't want a big Hollywood production. They didn't want cameras everywhere and 1,000 people they barely knew watching them exchange vows. They wanted something real, something authentic, something that was just for them and the people they loved most. Carson Daly, their friend and colleague from The Voice, officiated the ceremony. Gwen wore a custom Vera Wang gown with a chapel-length veil that had the names of Blake and her 3 sons embroidered on it, a detail that perfectly captures how she views their blended family. Blake wore a black suit, and the look on his face when he saw Gwen walking toward him was one of pure joy and disbelief, as if he couldn't quite believe that this was really happening, that this incredible woman was choosing to spend the rest of her life with him. But let's rewind a bit, because I want to talk about how they even got to that point. After those initial conversations during The Voice in 2014 and 2015, Blake and Gwen's friendship began to deepen. They started texting each other, calling each other late at night when the loneliness of their respective situations became too much to bear. They were each other's lifeline during one of the darkest periods of their lives. And somewhere along the way, friendship turned into something more. By November 2015, they had officially confirmed their relationship, and the world went absolutely wild. Nobody saw it coming. A punk rock icon and a country music star? It seemed like the most unlikely pairing imaginable. But those who were close to them weren't surprised at all. They saw what was happening. They saw two people who had found each other at exactly the right moment. Two people who understood each other's pain in a way that nobody else could. Two people who made each other laugh, even when everything else in their lives felt heavy and dark. Blake and Gwen didn't just fall in love. They healed each other. They gave each other hope when hope seemed impossible. They showed each other that it was possible to trust again, to open your heart again, to believe in love again, even after it had broken you. One of the things Gwen reveals about Blake that makes their relationship work so beautifully is his sense of humor. Now, we all know Blake is funny. We've seen him on The Voice cracking jokes and making everyone laugh. But Gwen says that his humor is different when they're alone. It's not performative. It's genuine and spontaneous and often incredibly silly. She says that they laugh together constantly, that Blake has this ability to find humor in everyday situations, that he can make her laugh even when she's in the worst mood or dealing with something stressful. She says that laughter is the secret ingredient to their happiness, that it's the thing that keeps them connected and playful and young at heart. But beyond the laughter and the romance and the grand gestures, there's something else that Gwen has revealed about Blake that really gets to the core of who he is as a person. It's his faith. Both Blake and Gwen are deeply religious, and their shared faith has been the foundation of their relationship from the very beginning. Gwen has said in interviews that having a third party in their marriage is the secret to their success, and that third party is God. She talks about how she and Blake pray together, how they go to church together, how they lean on their faith during difficult times, and how their relationship is rooted in something much bigger than just the two of them. This is significant because Gwen's first marriage to Gavin Rossdale was annulled by the Catholic Church, which was incredibly important to her as a devout Catholic. Despite having been married for 13 years and having 3 children together, the church granted the annulment based on the circumstances of the end of their marriage. This meant that Gwen was able to marry Blake in a ceremony that aligned with her religious beliefs, and the fact that Blake supported her through that process, that he understood how important it was to her, speaks volumes about his character and his commitment to honoring what matters most to her. Gwen also talks about how Blake has embraced ranch life and how that lifestyle has become a huge part of their relationship. Blake owns a sprawling ranch in Oklahoma, and it's his sanctuary, his escape from the chaos of the entertainment industry. When Gwen first started spending time there, she was completely out of her element. She's a California girl through and through, used to the beaches and the city life and the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. The idea of spending time on a ranch in rural Oklahoma, surrounded by cattle and dirt roads and wide open spaces, was foreign to her. But something magical happened. Gwen fell in love with it. She fell in love with the simplicity of ranch life, the peace and quiet, the connection to nature, the slower pace. She started gardening, getting her hands dirty in the soil, planting vegetables and flowers, and learning about the land. Blake even got her own tractor, which she proudly drives around the property. She talks about how therapeutic it is to be out there, how it grounds her and reminds her of what's really important in life. It's a far cry from the stages and studios and red carpets that have defined so much of her career. But Gwen says it's exactly what she needed. Blake gave her that. He shared his world with her, and in doing so, he gave her a place to heal and grow and rediscover herself. Now, let's talk about Blake's relationship with Gwen's 3 sons, because this is where his character really shines. Kingston, Zuma, and Apollo were young when Blake came into their lives. They had just gone through their parents' divorce, and they were understandably protective of their mother and cautious about this new man in her life. Blake could have approached this situation in a lot of different ways. He could have tried to be their friend, their buddy, the cool guy who takes them to do fun things. But that's not what he did. Instead, he respected their boundaries. He let them come to him on their own terms. He didn't try to replace their father or force a relationship that wasn't ready to happen naturally. Gwen has said that watching Blake with her boys is one of the things that makes her love him most. She sees how gentle he is with them, how patient, how genuinely interested in their lives and their interests. Blake taught them how to fish and hunt, how to drive a tractor and care for animals, how to appreciate the outdoors and the simple pleasures of country life. He's been there for their school events, their sports games, their important milestones. He's shown up for them consistently and lovingly, and over time, those 3 boys have come to see Blake not as an intruder in their lives, but as someone who genuinely cares about them and their mother. There's a particularly touching detail that Gwen shared about her wedding veil. Remember how I mentioned that she had names embroidered on it? It wasn't just Blake's name. It was Blake's name along with Kingston's, Zuma's, and Apollo's names. That wasn't a random design choice. That was Gwen's way of saying that this marriage wasn't just about her and Blake. It was about all five of them becoming a family together. It was her way of honoring the fact that Blake had embraced her children as his own, and that this commitment was to all of them, not just to her. Blake has also spoken publicly about how being a stepfather has changed him. He said that he never imagined himself in that role, that he didn't have children of his own and wasn't sure if he would be any good at it. But Gwen's boys have brought something into his life that he didn't even know was missing. They've taught him about unconditional love, about putting someone else's needs before your own, about the joy and chaos and beautiful messiness of family life. He said that being in their lives is one of the greatest privileges of his life, and you can tell from the way he talks about them that he genuinely means it. One of the most beautiful things about Blake and Gwen's relationship is how they've navigated their differences. They come from completely different musical backgrounds, completely different geographical backgrounds, completely different cultural backgrounds. On paper, it shouldn't work. But in reality, those differences are what make their relationship so rich and so strong. They've learned from each other. Blake has introduced Gwen to country music, to the storytelling and emotion and authenticity that defines the genre. Gwen has introduced Blake to the punk rock world, to the rebellion and energy and raw emotion that she grew up with. They've collaborated musically, creating songs together that blend their styles in unexpected and beautiful ways. Their duet Nobody But You is a perfect example of this. It's a country song, but it has elements of pop and rock woven throughout it, and the lyrics are deeply personal, talking about finding love after heartbreak, about being grateful for second chances, about knowing that you found the right person because they see you for who you really are. When they perform that song together, you can see the love and respect they have for each other in every glance, every harmony, every moment they share on stage. It's not just a performance, it's a conversation, a love letter, a celebration of what they've built together. Gwen has also revealed that one of the things she loves most about Blake is how he supports her career. In many relationships, especially in the entertainment industry, there's competition and jealousy and ego. But Blake has never made Gwen feel like she needs to dim her light so that his can shine brighter. He celebrates her successes, encourages her creative endeavors, and is her biggest cheerleader. When she was working on new music, he was right there beside her, listening to demos, offering feedback, celebrating every milestone. When she has performances or appearances, he's there supporting her, proud of everything she does. And Gwen does the same for him. They're partners in the truest sense of the word, lifting each other up and celebrating each other's achievements without any hint of competition or resentment. But it hasn't all been sunshine and roses. Gwen has been honest about the fact that she still experiences insecurities in their relationship. Despite everything they've been through together, despite the love and commitment they share, she still has moments where old wounds resurface, where the trauma of betrayal from her previous marriage creeps in and makes her doubt. She's talked about how Blake handles those moments with such grace and understanding, how he never dismisses her feelings or makes her feel foolish for having them. Instead, he reassures her, reminds her of his commitment, and gives her the space to work through those emotions without judgment. This level of emotional maturity is rare, especially in Hollywood relationships. So many couples in the public I seem to be constantly battling, breaking up and making up, airing their dirty laundry for the world to see. But Blake and Gwen have maintained a level of privacy and dignity in their relationship that's refreshing. They share enough to let their fans feel connected to their love story, but they also keep the most intimate and sacred parts of their relationship protected. They've set boundaries with the media, with social media, with the public, and they've been intentional about preserving the sanctity of what they have together. Recently, there have been some reports suggesting that Blake and Gwen are living separate lives, or that their marriage is in trouble. These kinds of rumors are nothing new for celebrity couples, and Blake and Gwen have largely ignored them. But the truth, according to those close to them, is far less dramatic. Yes, they spend time apart sometimes. Blake has his ranch in Oklahoma where he loves to be, especially now that he's stepped away from The Voice and isn't tied to a demanding filming schedule. Gwen has her life in Los Angeles, where her children go to school and where her career obligations often require her to be. But this doesn't mean their marriage is falling apart. It means they're two individuals who have their own interests and responsibilities, and they've figured out how to balance their relationship with the practical realities of their lives. In fact, Gwen has said that she loves the fact that she and Blake don't have to be together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to maintain a strong relationship. They trust each other. They miss each other when they're apart, which keeps the romance alive. And when they come back together, whether it's at the ranch or in LA or somewhere in between, they appreciate each other even more. They've learned that healthy relationships aren't about being joined at the hip. They're about giving each other space to be individuals while also prioritizing the time you spend together. Another aspect of Blake's personality that Gwen has revealed is his incredible work ethic. Despite his laid-back, easygoing persona, Blake Shelton is one of the hardest-working people in country music. He's released multiple platinum albums, had countless #1 hits, toured extensively, coached on The Voice for 23 seasons, and built a business empire that includes his Ole Red bar and restaurant chain. But he doesn't talk about it constantly. He doesn't brag or make a big deal out of his accomplishments. He just puts his head down and does the work day after day, year after year. Gwen says that this work ethic is something she deeply admires about Blake. She sees how dedicated he is to his craft, how much he cares about the quality of his music, how seriously he takes his responsibility to his fans. But she also sees how he balances that work ethic with the ability to relax and enjoy life. Blake knows how to turn it off. When he's at the ranch, he's not thinking about the next album or the next tour. He's fishing or working with his hands or spending time with Gwen and the boys. He's present. He's grounded. He's found a way to be incredibly successful without losing himself in the process, and that's a rare and valuable quality. Let's also talk about Blake's generosity, because this is another aspect of his character that Gwen has highlighted. Blake is not someone who flaunts his wealth or uses his success to make himself feel superior to others. Instead, he's incredibly generous with his time, his resources, and his heart. He's constantly doing things for others without expecting anything in return. He's helped aspiring musicians, supported charitable causes, been there for friends and family members in their times of need, and never made a big public show of any of it. Gwen says that this generosity extends to their relationship as well. Blake is constantly thinking about what he can do to make her happy, how he can support her, how he can show her love in tangible ways. One of the stories Gwen loves to tell is about how Blake surprises her with little things all the time. Not extravagant, expensive gifts, but thoughtful gestures that show he's paying attention. He'll leave her notes, send her flowers for no reason, cook her favorite meal, or plan a spontaneous date night. These are the things that keep their relationship fresh and exciting, the things that remind her every day that she's loved and valued and cherished. In a world where so many relationships become stale and routine over time, Blake and Gwen have managed to maintain that spark, that excitement, that feeling of being newly in love even after nearly a decade together. There's also something to be said about how Blake and Gwen handle conflict. Every couple argues. Every couple has disagreements and moments of frustration. But what matters is how you work through those conflicts, and Blake and Gwen have clearly figured that out. Gwen has said that they never go to bed angry, that they always talk things through even if it's difficult or uncomfortable. Blake doesn't shut down or storm off when there's a problem. He engages. He listens to Gwen's perspective, shares his own, and they work together to find a solution. This kind of healthy communication is the cornerstone of any lasting relationship, and it's clear that Blake and Gwen have put in the work to develop these skills. Another thing that makes their relationship so special is their shared love of music. This might seem obvious, given that they're both incredibly successful musicians, but it goes deeper than that. Music is their love language. They communicate through songs, express their feelings through lyrics, celebrate their relationship through performances. They've written songs about each other, for each other, and with each other. When words aren't enough, they turn to music, and in those melodies and harmonies, they find connection and understanding. Their collaboration on songs like Happy Anywhere and Nobody But You aren't just professional projects. They're extensions of their relationship. When you listen to those songs, you're hearing their love story put to music. You're hearing Blake's devotion to Gwen, Gwen's gratitude for Blake, and the joy they've found in building a life together. These songs will be part of their legacy, not just as artists, but as a couple who found each other against all odds and created something beautiful. As we near the end of this story, I want to talk about what Blake and Gwen represent to so many people. They're proof that it's never too late for a second chance. They're proof that sometimes the worst moments of your life can lead you to the best moments. They're proof that love doesn't always look the way you think it will, that the person who's perfect for you might be someone you never imagined ending up with. They're proof that healing is possible, that trust can be rebuilt, that you can open your heart again even after it's been shattered. Gwen Stefani speaking out about Blake Shelton, revealing these intimate details about who he really is behind closed doors, is her way of sharing their truth with the world. She wants people to know that Blake isn't just the funny guy from The Voice or the country music star with the hit songs. He's a man of depth and character and integrity. He's someone who shows up every single day with patience and kindness and love. He's someone who built a chapel with his own hands because he wanted their wedding to be meaningful. He's someone who embraced 3 young boys who weren't biologically his and treated them with the love and respect they deserved. He's someone who has supported Gwen through her insecurities, her career, her healing journey, and never asked for anything in return except her love. This is the Blake Shelton that nobody knew. This is the man behind the music, behind the jokes, behind the public persona. And Gwen Stefani, after all these years, has finally given us a glimpse into what makes him so extraordinary. It's not his fame or his fortune or his success. It's his heart. It's the way he loves. It's the way he shows up. It's the way he treats the people he cares about with unwavering kindness and devotion. So the next time you hear a Blake Shelton song on the radio or see him on television, remember this story. Remember that behind that charming smile is a man who has experienced heartbreak and emerged stronger. Remember that behind those jokes is someone who knows how to sit with pain and offer comfort. Remember that behind that country music swagger is a man who built a chapel for the woman he loves and who treats her children as his own. Remember that Blake Shelton is so much more than what we see on the surface, and Gwen Stefani is grateful every single day that she gets to know the real him, the version of him that the rest of the world doesn't get to see. Their love story is far from over. They're still writing new chapters, still growing together, still figuring out this beautiful, messy, complicated thing called life. But if the past decade has taught us anything, it's that Blake and Gwen have something real, something lasting, something worth celebrating. They've shown us that love can heal, that second chances are possible, and that sometimes the most unlikely pairings create the most extraordinary love stories. And for that, we should all be grateful, because in a world that often feels dark and cynical, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani remind us that true love still exists, and it's more beautiful than we could ever imagine.